In a year that has been so improbable, the impossible has happened. This one by Mattingly. Oh, hang on to the rope. Goodbye, Tom Mattingly. Tuck waits one. Deep left field. Down the line. That ball is out of here. Out of here. It's gone.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. I'm Steve, joined my tag partner, Devin. What's going on, man?
What's up? What's up? All is right with the world. Baseball's back. We are back here at Tablesetters. We kind of let the first opening weekend of the season breathe a little bit, get some games kind of underneath us, and now we are here to talk about what we've seen in the regular season so far, super early. But it's time to kind of, we made our predictions. Time to react now.
Yeah, great week of baseball, of course, started last Wednesday on Netflix. So if you guys have been keeping all your things together with your streaming services, you've been able to consume all the baseball. It's been a little bit confusing and frustrating for maybe an older baseball fan, but we made it happen. A lot of great baseball, as Devin mentioned. We've been covering it on Tablesetters on our X machine and also on Instagram at Tablesetters Pod. You guys can check us out over there. But keeping it going conversation. And what I really have enjoyed, Devin, is it feels like there's a buzz that's carried over from the World Baseball Classic, from last year's World Series. And it's just a tidal wave carrying into this year, where even last night on the nationally televised game between the Mariners and the Cleveland Guardians, it felt like there was this like love and passion of baseball that's just been brewing. And just, I don't think we've reached the peak yet in 2026.
No, I completely agree with you. I feel like baseball, you think of like the amazing postseason last year, capped with the unbelievable 7-game World Series classic, instant classic between the Blue Jays and the Dodgers, and then the World Baseball Classic, as you mentioned. It's just been one thing after the next. And I feel like you hit the nail on the head. Like, it just hasn't missed a beat. Like, it just got going right away. Sometimes the first week or two of the season, you get tons of cold weather, and it's just like, it's not hitting the right way yet. I didn't feel that way this year at all. There's a lot of beautiful weather on opening day. The San Francisco Oracle and the Netflix game looked absolutely gorgeous. We've gotten some colder weather here, but it's just been one fun thing after the next for Major League Baseball. And we're going to get into it in more specifics, but I'll put you on the spot. Like, these first 4 or 5 days of the season, whatever it's been, like, what's been the most impressive thing to you? Like, what stands out the most? And I'm asking that just because there's so much to choose from. If you had to, like, gun to your head, just pick one thing, what has impressed you the most so far?
It's been some of the parity we've been seeing from the teams that we were really down on coming into this year, watching the heart from the Marlins team in that teal uniform coming back. Owen Casey and the big hit he got. The Washington Nationals putting up a lot of runs on the Phils tonight. Even the Colorado Rockies tonight scoring a lot of runs on the undefeated Toronto Blue Jays. That's what I enjoy. And will it continue? Will there be parity like this over a course of 162? Absolutely not. That's not going to be the case. Eventually, these teams will wear themselves out, and they're going to be at the bottom of the standings, as we're used to remembering. But that's what's impressed me. And also, it's been a lot of these young players. I know I don't want to spoil our conversation. It's been really just the young players around baseball that, again, this has been a theme on Tablesetters. We've been discussing the pipeline shortening from top to bottom, from college, from the minors, and coming and arriving. And you name the guy that we've had high expectations for, whether it been Chase DeLauder or it's any guy from the international, Okamoto and Murakami. Like, these guys are arriving quicker than usual, and they look like they belong, which is so impressive.
Yeah, no doubt. And we'll have a longer winded conversation about that in a bit on here. It's really tough. I was thinking about it today. I'm like, what has stood out the most? And I don't know. There's like 20 different things you could pick from, and we're only 5 days in. But I will say one of the biggest stories is the ABS, the challenge system. I think that's what we're going to kick it off with here. And I don't know. I've listened to a lot of different opinions over the last couple days, and it's interesting because in my mind, I watched this and I'm just like, I just feel like, how could anyone dislike it? But I've heard differing opinions. And also today in particular, I heard a lot of people talking about what this means for the future, which is one thing I don't like about it. What I'm alluding to is, like, we're going to look back in 5 years and say, I can't believe that we still had home plate umpires calling this stuff and just have like a robot stuff. I know you've said that before, like this is just going to be the teaser before we get to the real thing. And I've always tried to deny it. Like, no, you need that human element. It is entertainment still, right? I just don't want the game to get too robotic. But I would say so far the ABS challenge system has been an absolute hit.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned we're going to get into the longer conversation about the nuts and bolts of what's been happening, but it's been creating these moments and the strategy we didn't know that was underneath. I think there was a lot of conversation about the catchers that are defensively minded, what's going to happen to them in the game. I think it's only increased their value of being able to recognize the strike zone at a higher clip. We'll get into the moment with Suarez and CB Buckner, which is just electric, and it's going to create this dynamic. There is an adversarial relationship between player and umpire since the beginning of time. And watching CB Buckner on back-to-back calls, I mean, it was an awful scorecard that he had on that game with the Reds and just did an awful job, but he was held accountable. And that's the biggest thing. And one of the other things I took away from ABS is typically we're watching baseball trailing behind the other sports as far as being on the forefront of new things. And like baseball's always kind of really clung to the tradition, which we love. We're a big fan of baseball doing that as traditionalists and loving the game, and the fabric of it is lined in history. But it feels like they're on the precipice of something new, and everyone's going to point to review in the NFL, and obviously NHL has it as well. But it feels like ABS is going to influence a lot of sports going forward, of putting people a little bit inside maybe the ref's mind about what their decision they're making in other sports. And that was what I took away, because internationally, of course, we're not familiar with rugby and watching them do it, but something as I was researching ABS and just how it will affect sports in the future, with rugby, they actually have video and audio for the decision-making and the conversation that goes into the review process. For us here, for the NBA, when they're reviewing a call, or the NHL, you get the decision, you hear the referee kind of announce to the crowd. I'll be curious to see how this transcends into baseball. Maybe the slippery slope isn't just going to be full robo umps. Maybe it's going to be more inclusion of just making that part of the entertainment about the review process and drawing the conversation, having more of that, like a bar stool type of thing of he got the call wrong and this is why.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that instant gratification reminds me of what, I mean, tennis has had this for, I don't know, like a decade or more now, with the serves, where it's exactly that. They just show it to you on the screen very quickly, whether it hit the line or not. Or it might not just be for serves. It might be for anything, but I know at least for serves. That's what this reminds me of. It's so quick. And that was my worry going in. It's like, oh, we've worked so hard to cut all this time out, and now we're going to stop the game for this. It just seems counterintuitive, but it's so quick. And the player has to make the decision very quickly as well, which is another part of this conversation we could have, because we've already seen a little bit of a disagreement with that spot. But you say it's going to influence things. You know who I think it's going to influence more than anyone else? Umpires. I was watching the beginning of the A's Braves game on MLB TV tonight. I had Bryce Elder streaming in our fantasy league, which some people might call me crazy to stream Bryce Elder, but he's facing the A's, who have struck out like a record amount of time in these first 3 games. So I said, why not? And it worked out pretty well, but that's beside the point here. So Kurtz is leading off the game against Elder and goes down 0-2, and Elder throws him a pretty nasty curve, but like very easy to tell it was a ball. It actually reminded me a lot of the strike 3 call to Perdomo in the WBC. Like that's where the pitch was. Like it was nasty, but it was nowhere near a strike. And Kurtz, even though it's leading off the game, and this is another thing to talk about, like when is the right time to use these challenges and when is not, he immediately taps his helmet, which I almost don't blame him, even though he's the first hitter of the game, because it was a clear ball. And also the A's are coming in here striking out 1 billion times. So they're probably eager to be like, no, you can't just ring us up on anything right now. And sure enough, the ABS quickly showed everybody it wasn't even close. Gets back in there. And then maybe 2 pitches later, he throws the exact same pitch. And I felt like I saw the umpire hesitate, and he called it a ball this time. But it was the exact same pitch. And he had to have seen it the same from his vantage point. But I could tell that was in his head. And I think we're going to see that. I think it's going to affect umpires. I mean, how can you be CB Buckner after that game and not be affected at all? I know he's been doing this for a long time. But still, like, what was it? 6 of 8 against. I mean, if you're not being affected by it at all, I think something's wrong in that circumstance. So yeah, I heard another person say, like, who's going to want to be an umpire now? It's almost embarrassing. But I don't know. Maybe these guys get better because of it. Like, I think that's a possibility.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it as well, is just holding the accountability and revealing and taking off the veil of all of this. I don't know, just the ability to actually hold yourself accountable, because this is tough. And I felt like a lot of the broadcasts I watched, whether it be national or here local SNY or on Yes here in New York, it's just everyone is complimentary of the system. And I think people, of course, the CB Buckner thing, I felt like was the outlier this weekend of just this. It felt like he was becoming confrontational with Suarez. Like he felt like he was being shown up. I felt like the other umpires took it in stride a little bit. And for the most part, of course, it's going to be a growing process. The other thing that we'd be remiss if we didn't mention is the things that's not going to show up on the scorecard. It's the calls that affect the at-bats, the ones with Judge where he took a 2-0 count, or it would have been a 1-1 count, and turned into a 2-0 count, and he saw a pitch and drove it over the fence for his first home run of the year. And that changes things about how you're approaching these at-bats. And those small margins of error, it gives you this new perspective of the game. And that's what I really appreciate. Just, again, get the call right is what it's always about. But there's other layers of this story that I feel like we haven't even written as watching this grow throughout this year.
Yeah, watching a lot of baseball over the weekend, I literally saw that circumstance multiple times where like an at bat would have been over and it turned into runs, or an inning would have been over, like you just mentioned, and it turned into something else. And a guy like that Judge at bat, I believe you're speaking of, maybe, or one of the things in the Yankee series, maybe it wasn't that one, was against Tyler Mahle, and I had him on my fantasy team, so I was like invested, obviously, and he thought he was out of the inning, and then all of a sudden not, and it kind of changed his outing completely into what was looking like a really good outing, just was like okay. It definitely got shortened a bit. So, I mean, the other thing I've noticed also is I feel like the guys to trust the most, and maybe I'll share my screen here because some of these numbers are going to be related to the Baseball Savant page. But I think so far, early days here, obviously, but I think so far the guys to trust the most are the catchers. As far as if you're thinking hitters, pitchers, or catchers, I think clearly it's been the catchers so far. I mean, so here, if you haven't been on the Baseball Savant ABS page yet, you should go. It's very interesting. It's when you go to Baseball Savant, you'll see ABS new right towards the top banner. It's easy to find. It gives you a little introduction here about how they measure the players and all that kind of stuff too. But the season data so far, 54% overturns so far. For batters, only 42% overturns when they challenge. For fielders, which is large majority the catcher, right? It's been pretty infrequent that it's the pitcher. And I guess part of that's ego. Like they think everything's a strike, which I think you kind of have to be like that when you're a pitcher. But 63% of the fielder challenges, as we see here, have been overturned. So way better than the batter number. And I was watching the Guardians game either last night, maybe it was 2 nights ago. And they made a couple awful challenges. And I don't just mean that they were wrong, but like the timing of them just like was not the circumstance. So that's the other thing, that there's this feeling out process of like, when is the appropriate time to use them? Do we use them as soon as we feel strongly about it? Or do we kind of hold on to a certain situation? And I think every team's doing it differently. And we could go into that too. But to you, is when you are watching your team, is there a time in the game where you're hoping the Yankees like don't use a challenge compared to when you hope they do?
It's tough to say because you want them to get the call right, but you watch other calls, like, because again, you think that it will be a case of you're trying to get every call right, but it feels like there are batters that are going to prioritize certain situations. Jeff Passan released an awesome article for free on ESPN, not behind any paywall, about similar to the data we're breaking down here. And he was talking about how the 6th inning was the most popular time for the challenges to be made, which again it's an early sample size. It's going to be interesting to watch as that grows. But you don't want to get to a pivotal time at the end of the game and not have the challenges left, because let's be honest, high leverage situations. And I think that will be parallel to using relievers and being able to high leverage situations. You want to have the challenges in your back pocket, but similar to the head coaches that are criticized in the NFL, you can't take the timeouts with you to the other games. So you want to be able to use it. And it's part of this strategy of being able to identify. And it's going to be interesting to watch. You mentioned the catchers being the most successful by being able to identify the strike zone. Salvi Perez was a wizard this weekend.
Yeah,
I see him on the challenge spot where he won 4 and lost 0. you can tell there's a feeling of guys. Of course, Patrick Bailey has been known as this defensive wizard, and there's a conversation on the Yankees broadcast that he was even to be a serviceable bat. He could be one of the best players in baseball just because that's how good defensively he is. But I think that's going to be a large portion of this conversation is about creating value again with identifying the strikes, and whether you're a hitter or the catcher. And as you mentioned, the pitcher, it's going to be interesting if they are able to put their ego aside and say, even just out of habit, I'm not going to challenge because they think everything's a strike.
Yeah, no doubt. And this is going to be another negotiating tool for catchers as far as like at the end of the year, if any of these guys are in contract years, like, hey, look how well I did with the challenges. And so you see Salvi there at the top, and you're right. Wizard is the right word because he was nailing some that were like to the blind eye, like, I don't know, that's really really close, like not super obvious ones. But like you don't see many of the catchers have really bad numbers here yet. So they to me have clearly been the winners here. When you look at let me see, by team, if we tally it over here to by team, you see the Cincinnati Reds have been the most successful as far as they're 6 for 6 going into the night.
Well, that was in the one game. That was in the one game against the Red Sox. Really, they got 4 of them in that game.
That's for the batting teams there, so not for the pitching teams.
Right.
And there's the Guardians. So that's kind of what I was alluding to. Going into tonight, as far as batters on the Guardians, 0 for 5. Like Stephen Vogt is going to have to take these guys aside and be like, listen, man, like you guys got to be sure about this or use it at the right time. It was pretty drastic when I was watching it. Some of the mistakes they made as far as challenging when it just didn't seem like the right time. And if we look at it by fielding teams, I mean, I like to go by percentage, even though it's such a small sample size right now. But the Royals 4 for 4. So that's Salvi. Obviously, the Yanks, Austin Wells 3 for 3 himself. These numbers will get more interesting as they get bigger. But I want to see how the lost White Sox. All right, I mean, again, not a lot to go by, but there have been a few standouts. Salvi probably being number one, and obviously the Eugenio Suarez thing. I got to say, before I forget, this Suarez thing and Buckner. So Codify put this out, and actually comes from Ump Scorecards, at Ump Scorecards on Twitter. But this is the number. This is not just ABS. This is incorrectly called balls and strikes in their first outing as home plate umpire. 26 for CB Buckner. The next worst, Trip Gibson, Chris Segal, 19 each. And then after that, Dan Iasonia, 16, Roman DeJesus, 16. And then everyone else is in like the low teens or single digits. The best, Jordan Baker, Ryan Wills, only missed 5 in their first outings. I mean, Buckner, outlier might not even be the word right here. Like, it's looking like it's time to go, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, we had this conversation about Angel Hernandez before he was excommunicated from the umpire community as well. And I think what's really going to separate these umpires is the adaptation that they make over the course of time. And you have to be willing to just swallow your pride and get the call right and be able to identify that it's for the betterment of the game. It's not showing anybody up. It's about the approach you do it. I think these unwritten rules in baseball are important to keep the fabric of the game there. But there's also, again, wanting to get the call right, because we mentioned even these calls that are not made to end an inning or have a strikeout, they are affecting at bats, because the difference between a 1-1 count and a 2-0 count, we know drastically affects the pitch choice. It affects the opportunity for us to sit here and have the opportunity to watch one of the best batters in baseball get an opportunity to hit. How many times are we watching throughout the history of baseball moments in time? And people romanticize that, Devin, but we're past that point. We can't have a situation like we had in the WBC with the DR in the US happen on a big stage here. That is a learning lesson on a big stage. And whether people believe it or not, this is the future of sports. And it has to be done in a tactful way, like we're continuing to see here. It can't be on every pitch, because that's going to slow the game down and take away the human element. But there is a lot to be said about the strategy, and that creates more dynamic conversation where you're sitting on the couch drinking a beer with your buddy and watching now talking about another layer of this game where it's already so layered. If you're watching baseball, it's 4D chess if you know what you're watching, and adding this to it, it just creates another layer of more intricacies that we can have a discussion about strategy and value to these players.
Yeah, and that takes us to like a lot of people who are talking in different places today about, all right, it's hard to look at it now where it's like, all right, we have the technology. Why are we not just going fully with it, where it's just complete robo strikes and balls. And that's where I struggle to get to. I get it. It's not easy to argue against that, to be honest. It's hard to find good reasons. But I just go back to like baseball. Major League Baseball is still in the field of entertainment. Like it is, you still need entertainment value, and that might not be a good enough reason for most people. But like I think it's good theater with the umpire back there and the head taps and when to use it. And I know when you really think about it logically, is like, why are we doing all this? We can just cut all the challenge stuff out completely and just do the robo stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's part of me too, like just in a general way, like it's scary that AI and all this stuff is going to be taking over so much stuff and taking jobs. So like I'm already kind of in a way like feeling against all that stuff, and it's going to come real quick. But it's more so just like it is the entertainment value. Like people were worried that like the human element would be completely cut out just with this, and there'd be no more arguments. We already saw what 2-3 ejections. One of them was Derek Shelton of the Twins getting really angry that he thought the Orioles took too long to create the challenge that went against the Twins. And that's another point of emphasis. Like, is that just a feel thing for the umpires as far as like the timing goes? I think it's just a feel thing. And if they get sensitive, could they be like extra quick? Like, not, yeah, it took you 2 seconds, not happening. But we saw some arguments already based on other things related to ABS. It's a lot. There's a lot of convoluted parts. It's simple, and in the same way, because it's baseball, you're going to take something simple and it's going to get twisted in all different ways. There's going to be a feeling out process. There'll probably be some moments that are not so great, but so far, like you said, like everyone's pointing to it, and I think you have to, that those moments in Cincinnati where the crowd is going nuts for it, I mean, it's been really positive so far.
Yeah, the word is satisfying to be able to watch a player that is so intrinsically in touch with the strike zones. Like I mentioned Salvador Perez, but it felt like he was the most obvious case. Just the confidence of being able to, is like, nope, that's a strike, and was able to do it. And it's satisfying to get those calls right in the moment and appreciate those players. I just think that this is it will always be a slippery slope. And there was a conversation about this in the Ultimate Fighting Championship with the UFC, and they had a fight this weekend in Seattle where Dana White was asked about this was the entertainment side of it with the media. They were creating a hype package for the show with AI. And one of the reporters was asking, is that too far? Are you taking jobs from somebody, about someone who can create these awesome edit packages for the fighters you have here? And we know how Dana White is. He's pretty aggressive as far as with the reporters, and he doesn't really mince any words. And he was like, AI is here, and if you're expecting us not to use it, you're just crazy. It's part of the fabric, and you can't be in denial. And I think with baseball, to watch them accept this in their own way, watch that, just the growth we've seen in baseball, the acceptance of whether it be the Manfred man, whether you like that or not, or the pitch clock, or now ABS. I feel like they've been more accepting in the last 10 years than they've been in the last 80. And it's interesting to watch just how progressive this is, whether you can attribute that to Manfred or attribute that to just growth of the game. But I think it does tie with the popularity of the game, whether it's speeding it up, it's the perfect mixture, and you don't want to fall over too far on this ledge. You don't want everything to go too far the other way, where you're taking away what makes baseball so romantic about the soundtrack to the summer. As corny as that is, if you guys are baseball fans, of course you're listening to this, you understand what I'm saying. You don't want it to be too the other way. And I think right now they're getting it right, but it's going to be this dance for the remainder of time about how can we balance the romantic nature of baseball with the technology that is constantly impacting our life. But isn't that the story of our everyday human life, Devin, right? That's exactly what we're dealing with in everyday life. Yeah.
And that there's a lot of people that say one of the great things about baseball is it kind of parallels to real life in a lot of different ways. And that's another one now that is kind of going right alongside of real life. But speaking of the game growing and getting more popular, a big part of that is the youngsters. Can we have that bigger conversation about the rookies now?
Almost appropriate because we got Okamoto hitting another home run just now.
That's
just
my
happened
guy.
Again.
That's so I mean, guy. There you go.
It's awesome to see whether, I'll let you take the lead on, but just seeing even just from different backgrounds. Of course, we talked all off season. Jim Allen was part of our conversation about Tetsuya Imai and Murakami, and now with Okamoto about being able to transition to the game. We saw other players struggle and some players are adapting, but Pair that with the rookie class, with guys with minimal AAA bats and these guys coming here, it feels like everyone's adapting. That remains to be seen if this will continue. It's a small sample size, but just what I've seen in the first week of baseball, I don't know if I've ever seen a rookie class with such limited experience come out there and just shine on the first week.
No, you've seen like individuals like kind of burst onto the scene at the beginning of the season or when they first get called up or something like that. But I've never seen anything like this from my recollection. Coming into today's game, so just these are numbers based on the opening weekend. The list of guys in eye-opening performances is just ridiculous. Sal Stewart went 7 for 10, had an OPS of over 2,000 over the opening weekend. Murakami had 3 home runs, obviously 1 in each game. And everyone's saying maybe we overthought this whole thing with the whole strikeout rate and contact rate thing, and dude just mashes. Owen Casey, obviously the walk-off yesterday for the Marlins. And you just go down the list. Chase DeLauder set the world on fire. Did something that hasn't been done since Trevor Story, right? 4 home runs in his first 3 games with that unique swing. Just kind of catches your eye. Kevin McGonigal just looks like he's been in the majors for like 8 years already. Just does everything. Went 5 for 12, OPS over 1,000. Okamoto, you said, hit a home run, hit another home run tonight. His OPS was over 1,000 on opening weekend as well. Weatherholtz had the home run. He had the walk-off single. So like back-to-back games, like his first 2 games, that's what you're doing. This stuff just like doesn't happen. And like we're just talking about the hitting side. Like eventually you're gonna see some standouts on the pitching side as well. I mean, Connolly early looked pretty damn good. Rhett Lauder looked pretty good. Head-to-head, by the way. Like we could go on and on, but I have never seen this many rookies out of the gate be this good. And I tweeted this the other day, a couple days ago. It's just the story just keeps on going. Like the fact that most likely sometime this season, we're probably going to add the likes of Connor Griffin, Travis Bazzana, Robbie Snelling. There's way more. Those are the first names that pop in my head. You're going to add a lot more. Charlie Condon to this list of rookies that, I mean, it has a chance to be one of the all-time rookie classes. And it's super exciting. I mean, they're all over the leaderboards, like everywhere we look.
Yeah, and you mentioned all those guys, and we'd be mistaken if we don't mention Carson Bench on opening day hitting a home run for the Mets. And he obviously, I mean, tonight he had a decent game over here. He going 2 for 4 with 2 singles, a stolen base. So he's out there in the win against St. Louis. But watching the adaptation of these players being able to get out there and play in the big moment, not shrink there. And it's hard to pick the guy you're most impressed with because it depends on what you're looking for. And if you like the flashy moment like DeLauder, or you're looking at just some of the other, like you mentioned, McGonigal just doing the right thing and getting big hits and not shrinking from the moment. The DeLauder stuff, it's hard for me not to just be most excited about that. And I know a lot of people have been discussing the injury piece with him of like, if he can stay on the field, everyone's known that he can do things like this. But just watching him and just the electricity they bring, and I have to mention JJ Weatherholt as well. I think what they can infuse in a team, just the energy level, and you see it across all sports. A young player, a young budding superstar. Hockey just changed the face of the franchise with the New York Islanders when Matthew Schaefer was drafted and playing on the team. That's the effect that these young players are having on their teams. And I know, again, we're still a week in, and they're going to have growing pains. It's baseball. You know, getting out 7 out of 10 times makes you a Hall of Famer. We understand that. That is the full sample size of baseball. But just the energy in the ballpark and watching that comeback from the Cardinals, and they didn't have any of that life in the ballpark the last 2 years. And I'm not saying it's just all JJ Weatherholt, but clearly the comeback they made against Tampa and scoring all the runs, it felt like there was a buzz in the ballpark that you can attribute to the team playing with a lot of energy. And it's hard for me not to point to what's the difference. You have a young kid that's playing there that feels like they're picking everybody up. I saw his interview on MLB Network on the pregame today, where he's talking with Howard Reynolds and Vasgersian and all of them. And it's crazy to hear these players because they're so young about who they watch growing up. And he mentioned Robinson Cano, he mentioned Jose Altuve, he mentioned Dustin Pedroia. And it's hard not to look at JJ's swing and not compare it to a guy like Robbie Cano. It feels like he has a very similar swing path. And it's just hard not to be excited as a baseball fan. We always talk about this with the young stars, and even the guys that are established at this point, the guys that have been in the league that are already superstars, like the Fernando Tatis Juniors of the world, Corbin Carroll, and the list goes on. the game has never been as healthy as it is as far as the talent grows. And it's the markets and the ability for us to look at these players on an equal playing field. It's no longer about just being a star in New York, LA, or Philly. They can play in all these other markets and establish themselves. And it's such a beautiful thing watching them go out there and play the game at the highest level.
Yeah, it's just when you really think about it, think like the rotation of new hot players is faster than ever. Like you'd think we'd be talking about like Roman Anthony and Nick Kurtz right now, who like, burst onto the scene last year. I'm not saying those guys are forgotten about, but like their names momentarily have been like swept under the rug for a little bit while we all drool over this new crop. And even like the Ellie De La Cruzes of the world, like for a little while, we're pushing these really other like young other guys that have been in the league for a little bit kind of to the side because we're all just watching these other dudes. And we should mention also, like, speaking of rookie class, well, it's not rookie, it's come back to the major leagues, right? Cody Ponce, I mean, goes down tonight with what we're still waiting for. I mean, he fell on one pitch, and then I think it was the next play trying to run to first base, goes down an absolute heap. I, as a Achilles survivor myself, immediately think of that when you just go down kind of in agony and can't get back up. But the Blue Jays are calling it a right knee something discomfort. Obviously, it's going to be more than discomfort. They carted him off, but that was a shame to see because he was looking real good. He's done all the work to kind of get back here and be a different pitcher from his first go around in Major League Baseball. And for the Blue Jays, like, it changes. I know they're pretty deep, but like it changes, especially with injuries to a guy like Barrios and things like that. Like all of a sudden I know obviously Kevin Gossman and Dylan Cease looked amazing in those starts against the A's, but you're just putting a lot more pressure on everybody in that rotation. If you're losing this guy already for the whole season, we don't know yet. It could be not as bad as it looked, but got to throw that in there. That just happened like an hour or two ago, but it's definitely worth mentioning.
Well, while we wax poetic about the rookies, we'd have to mention Mike Trout, making everybody remember his name as well, where he had quite the week over here. And again, health has to be brought into this conversation, but watching what he did coming out there with the 462 ISO and the 311 WRC plus, and you're watching a player again that we look at a guy like Mike Trout and we understand what he brings to the table. He's already a Hall of Famer. I think we're all on the path of everyone's rooting for the guy to be out there. We're rooting for him to be in a playoff series eventually again. It definitely looks at him as a superstar, and he's like, remember me, guys? I'm Mike Trout, and I can come out here and play at the highest level. So you have the both sides of the spectrum where you have these young players with limited bats and a guy like Mike Trout, who at one time was on a pace that was historic. And of course, that's the story, age old time with the injuries. If he can stay healthy, and a big if, obviously, that adds another layer of intrigue for this year where how could you not root for a Mike Trout resurgence season? Like, that's what I'm rooting for personally, whether it's in Anaheim or he gets traded elsewhere, fingers crossed that he gets into a postseason series in a big moment. He's locked in right now. And again, first week, but just absolutely love to see it.
Yeah. And I think we could put both of those conversations together here, where like, it's been fun opening weekend because the players that are standing out are this really fun mix of rookies and vets that we thought maybe were getting close to done, and then just guys in new places. It's a mix of all three of those kind of. You mentioned Trout. I mean, Andrew McCutchen had a big home run for the Rangers the other day against the Phillies as well. I mean, you look at this list. We have Fangraphs up. This is organized by F4. Mike Trout right up there at the top. Brendan Donovan absolutely killing it in Seattle. Like, looks like he fully belongs there. Right? Just killing it from the get-go. It's hard to do that on a new team that has pressure, a team that was one step away from the World Series, to be the new guy. He's making it look like no sweat. Shea Langoliers, like my bold prediction for leading the AL in home runs. I mean, he got off to a really good start. Brandon Lau, new place, had some big moments in Pittsburgh already, popping a couple home runs and also doing everything else. Like, it's not just the home runs. He's just hitting really well. Sal Stewart, who we mentioned, go 7 for his first 10, right in the thick of things. Chase DeLauter. By the way, you kind of alluded to it. Like, if you were forced to make your choice out of all these rookies, who has impressed you the most? I'm with you. I think you were kind of alluding to, like, you'd go with DeLauter. Like, the Guardians always need that Robin to Jose Ramirez's Batman. And if he can stay on the field, they may have finally found it. And even more impressive, he did that against the Seattle pitching staff, which starting and bullpen is fantastic. And in Seattle, the worst hitting ballpark ever. That, not ever, but like, ballpark factor wise. The fact that home run against Andres Munoz, where he goes opposite field, looked like he had no business being able to put that ball in the seats. Just unreal. You keep on going down this list. I won't go too far, but Murakami is next on the list. F4, like a new guy coming over from NPB. Andres Jimenez in that loaded lineup for the Blue Jays. He's the guy who's had a bunch of big hits so far. Willie Abreu kind of carrying over the success in the WBC. Jonathan Aranda kind of reminding everyone who he is. He seems forgotten about for some reason. Again, only after like a year. Owen Casey in Miami, new face, new place, rookie. Christian Yelich has had some big moments and actually pimped a home run. Very unlike Christian Yelich. Jordan Walker. We haven't mentioned Jordan Walker. We should. He's looked like a different hitter. Finally, is it like finally the real thing? We'll see. Luis Robert, another new face, new place, having a big moment for the Mets. Like Yandy Diaz is on there, who's just getting 5 hits the other day, career high. So it's just a fun list of players. We could go on and on and on, but that's what caught my eye. And it's no matter which way you look at the stats. Like if I stop the share here and go over to, if I go over to the Baseball Savant page, like you're going to see a lot of the same names. If we look at like barrel percentages and things like that, let me get over to that very quickly here. We go over to the StatCast leaderboard.
While you're talking about that, just to mention DeLauder, I mean, the big thing that we have to watch with him, obviously, I mentioned the injury piece, but the fact that I don't believe he has a walk yet, and he's striking out at almost a 35% K rate. So that's something to watch. He's volatile. I think everyone's expected that, these young players that have the adjustments to make. Murakami, same thing, 30% walk rate, 30% strikeout rate. Extreme profiles are going to create the volatility. But being able to watch some of these players go out there and adjust, and I understand it's 2026, strikeouts aren't a death sentence anymore. But at the same time, we watch how volatile, and you can slip into deep slumps if you're striking out at that rate. So that's something to watch with a young player as the pitchers adapt and get more book on them.
Yeah, and I know our friend Chris Welsh was talking to us about Nick Kurtz and being a little lower on him than so many other people are. He's going super high after that ridiculous season, partly because the swing and miss. And the whole Athletics team is showing it so far. But I've watched a good amount of Kurtz as a fantasy owner of his, and I don't know. He hasn't found it yet this season. Let's just say that. Doesn't look as confident. I'm sure he'll go on some runs where he's just hitting everything over the fence. But so here's the Baseball Savant page. This one's in order of barrels per plate appearance. You have Owen Casey right up there. Jordan Walker is up there. Joey Weimer, not a name we mentioned before, having a real nice time in Washington so far. Dominic Canzone, a lot of people picked him up to be a breakout player for Seattle. To see these names hanging out with the likes of Freddie Freeman and Aaron Judge early, and I understand you get some unexpected names when it's this early in such a small sample size. But like, who's to say some of these names won't hang around and have these breakout years that we'll talk more about at the end of the year? It's just fun. It's been a very fun group of players that have kind of had the spotlight so far.
Yeah, I think looking at some of the advanced stats for some of these guys, we mentioned the K rate, but also you got to look at the swing speed. You have to also look at just the exit velocity on some of these hits that feel like they're not just fluky hits. You mentioned like McGonigal, even though the ball's not leaving the ballpark at the same rate as some of these younger players, he's hitting the ball hard, and you have an idea of these players are who they are and watching them adjust over time. And I mentioned the biggest piece with the raw skills of, you mentioned Jordan Walker. Like, he's a guy that you can understand that why, first of all, scouts loved him from the beginning, the body size and being able to adjust. And it's crazy how the shine comes off these prospects. And let's be honest, Jordan Walker, the shine's completely off. Like, this is beyond post hype for him. I think this is last chance for him, but it's refreshing to see just these guys come out the gates swinging and be able to actually have the adjustment period of we're going to get off to a good start. Because so many times, I mean, with the established nature of a guy like Aaron Judge, this conversation last year, I believe he started the year like 2 for 16 or whatever it was, and he was okay, clearly won the MVP. But when you don't have that sample size of what to lean on, these younger players, a guy like Jordan Walker, I feel like getting off to a slow start would be the death knell in his campaign, because it's like, oh, here we go again. It's like,
Yeah.
and they may not get the same opportunity, the same at bats. I understand St. Louis is in a retooling phase, but it becomes this mental game. And Yogi Berra said the game is majority of it is mental, whatever the quote was. It's so true, dude. Like you have to be able to believe in yourself. And when you get off to a slow start, you see those numbers. We talked about the Braves last year with Michael Harris and Ozzie Albies. The numbers you saw, like it starts to, there's no way it doesn't snake into your brain where you feel like, all right, Murphy's Law type of season, we're going to fall into the cracks, and all of a sudden I can't get a hit again.
Yeah, I mean, I was speaking of that, watching the Mets game tonight. I'm happy to see Bo Bichette get an RBI hit in this game. He had a really rough time in his debut at Citi Field.
I loved his quote about being booed.
I loved it too. It's so, yeah, he did such a good job. And this is the thing. This is why I just feel like the Mets have we're not gonna have a big Mets conversation right now yet. Eventually it'll come, but I just feel like it's a more professional team this year. Just a bunch of professionals. That's what they feel like this year. Devin Williams goes out and closes it out tonight clean in St. Louis. Nice to see him get off. I said he's a guy who needs to get off to a good start, kind of put last year behind him. But Bichette finally cracks one. This is one of the best hitters with runners in scoring position of the last 5 years. So you knew it was going to come, but he admitted it's so refreshing to hear a professional athlete admit that he was kind of chasing a big moment instead of just letting it come to him. So often they'll be like, no, I'm not pressing. I'm not pressing. When it's obvious when you're kind of in the new place you are. So I think for the Mets to get on the road, it's a good place for him to kind of hopefully break out. But just to finish up the conversation about some of these guys off to a hot start. I mean, some names, if you look at leaderboards by different categories of leaderboards and you start to see the same names in the top 10, like those are the names you want to pay the most attention to. And as you were talking before, I was just going through like exit velocity, hard hit balls. Right now I have it ordered by 95 mile per hour or more. How many of those types of hits some guys have? Jonathan Aranda at the top with 9. Freddie Freeman, Yandy Diaz, both there as well. Jordan Walker, there's that name again. 8 hits of that variety. Sal Stewart, there he is again. JJ Weatherholt, there. Like you're seeing these names come up over and over and over, no matter what metric you're looking at. So that makes you feel like, where there's smoke, there's fire. But obviously, a guy like Walker is going to have to prove it for a longer period of time. And he might just feel more relaxed knowing that they're kind of like the pressure's kind of off, where it's a development year for the entire squad. Maybe this is the year he really does kind of look more like the guy we were told about for many years, but we'll see.
Yeah, for the McGonigal thing, I'm looking at his Baseball Savant. So I was mistaken about his hard hit percentage, but his bat speed is up. So that's something to look at, is really the microcosm of why the hits are falling. And it's going to be there's some other crazy numbers on here. His sprint speed is in the 93rd percentile. That he's just
crazy.
He moves around like no other. There's a lot of these players that this is not going to be a blip on the radar. These guys feel like they are the real deal, and there will be ebbs and flows. It is baseball, but McGonigal feels like the real deal. And it's awesome to see that on a big stage like this. But let's move ahead here. As we said, we're recording tonight, and the Yankees are live right now playing the Mariners in Seattle. Luis Castillo right now is 59 pitches in, and they're up 1-0. So we'll see how the game plays out. But turning the clock back, we'll bake it into our last two conversations, was opening night. Netflix, San Francisco, you mentioned the beauty that is all the sights and scenes over there. And I think we want to start with Tony Vitello. And part of Tony Vitello, just getting off to the start here, he was a big talking point on our show. His transition from NCAA at Tennessee, being a culture builder, how will he adapt? And will this be a trend going forward for Major League Baseball and managers? And we saw the Giants swept by the Yankees in the opening series, scoring just 1 run across 27 innings, the worst offensive start in their franchise history. But beyond the numbers, the conversation is going towards Tony Vitello because he's creating a separate storyline, one of his own making. And the post-game press conference is a live national TV interview. He made 3 comments by my count. Maybe there's more, that gave doubters a lot of the fresh ammunition and kept the spotlight fixed on him rather than his team. So let's go after the Game 2 loss. He was blaming his own speech for the losses. So they had the back-to-back shutouts. He pointed to his motivational speech being too fiery, that he said he delivered it days earlier, and that was the reason his players were too emotionally wound up to perform. He went on to say that the emotions were, quote, a little too high, and he wanted to see a relaxed version of the group. And then his own players walked back and they contradicted. Robbie Ray was in front of the microphone pregame for game 3 and said, I don't think so. We're all major league players. We can handle the ups and downs. So before we get into the other Tony Vitello comments, that was the precursor of a lot of these things where you have on opening weekend, your players kind of walking back what you said. That was the first thing. Your thoughts on that? Were people making too big of a deal of this, or was that something to kind of shake your head at?
I think now that there is a group of different statements that he has said, I don't think it's an overreaction. There's some weird stuff, and I don't want to be too harsh. It's so early, but like, I don't know, man. Some of it just seems minor leaguish. Like he's making it way too much about himself, and that I don't think that's going to play in a major league locker room. I want to go back to spring training. You might remember this. Early in spring training, he sat in the dugout with a bunch of reporters and kind of very randomly just started asking them, like, who was the person that like preemptively announced I was going to sign with the Giants when I hadn't yet. It was just very weird conversation. I don't know if you remember this. It was a very strange conversation he had with reporters where like they didn't ask him a question. He just went in and led this whole conversation about like, oh, that wasn't true what you guys said. Like this is how it actually happened. And it just, I don't know. It was very strange. The timing where he brought it up, like it's many months after he's been hired, like Tennessee's moved on. It was strange. Is that it was as if his head was still in Knoxville. But yeah, this one I didn't like at all. Like it's one game, dude, and you're attributing it to your speed. Like it's not a football team, right? It's not like there's only 17 games in the year and you have to like get these guys riled to go. Like it's a long season. So yeah, I didn't like that one. If we're starting with that one, I didn't love it. It's just kind of a what? Like I'm not something I'm annoyed at, but like confused by. I just think he's kind of looking at it the wrong way.
So misstep number 2, I got a lot of heat on X for right after it happened. This conversation, I tweeted about it and I said I didn't love what he had said, where he did the in-game thing with Ken Rosenthal, which is usually just like punt away and it's just catch all. A lot of the managers give nothing away. And he was asked about the biggest adjustment from college to the majors, and he smiled and said, quote, I can't talk down to guys anymore. They're my age where it feels like they're close to it. And again, he's 47. The oldest player in San Francisco is 34. So it's not like, all right, we're going to sit here and sort of go through those numbers. The biggest thing is like, why would you say something like that? Again, for me, he didn't mean it that way. He was joking. That was the pushback from a lot of Tennessee fans on Twitter when I said it, like, you guys are so nitpicky. You're going to find things to criticize him with. All I was saying is I'm a fan of him. I want him to succeed. But that's the worst thing you can say if you're trying to introduce him as this star manager that's going to be guiding the San Francisco Giants into the next era alongside Buster Posey to what they're going to be. And no one, say you don't know anything about college baseball, which a lot of Major League Baseball fans don't. They don't watch college baseball. So his resume, in a lot of ways, not to minimize it, means nothing to them. For them to only encapsulate who is he as a coach? Is he this culture builder, a uniter of men, or is he a guy talking down to college students? I just thought it was a weird choice of words. And I think there is a lot of pushback. I wasn't the only one that said it. I think skeptics now have a clip that they can run all season of being like, when it doesn't work out, you were talking down to college kids and that's why you were successful. It's just a weird dynamic that, again, I don't think he's a bad guy and that's what he was doing because his resume speaks for itself. But it's a foot and mouth moment that you don't have to do. All you have to do exactly is what the Aaron Boones, the Dave Roberts of the world, just speak in the code that like Derek Jeter mastered back in the day. He has not mastered that yet.
No, doesn't seem media trained at all. And it's weird because like we as podcasters and just as fans, like sometimes we get so annoyed at the canned answers, right? Like the pre-prepared answers, like Bill Belichick did it better than anybody, where he'd give the media nothing, right? We're on to Cincinnati, that kind of stuff. You don't have to be that dry. Like you can have a little personality and show it every once in a while. But he's given too much and he's kind of speaking before thinking. He's got to be a little more prepared for this. It's part of the game. And I know he's new, but I think why, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'll speak for myself. I think the reason I'm feeling critical of this stuff is because I do want him to succeed, because I think it would be cool for a college to major league, straight to manager thing. I think that would be a cool trend. And I know there's probably some people out there that like, no, that's not cool because like there's other guys that spend their lives on benches in major league positions that are not managers that should get a shot before someone gets called right from college. And I get that too. But on the entertainment part of things, like I think it is kind of fun and it interweaves college baseball with Major League Baseball even more than it already is. So I am rooting for him to succeed. And so I'm watching this almost as a fan where it's like, dude, no, like, come on, man. Like it's just not a good start. I don't think he's a bad guy either. I'm not going to jump to that, but it's just like, kind of like, what did you mean by that? Like, that's kind of how I felt.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it doesn't help when you score 1 run in 27 innings
Exactly.
and you get swept at home. So there's a lot to be down on the team. And that is baseball. That's what it is. There's also some language people we're figuring out that we're just not what we're normally used to hearing. He used the word try hard as a noun for his players. He also was calling the clubhouse the locker room. He was talking about the 3-game skid as terms of emotional management, which again, is maybe that's the kind of analysis that we're going to make around a 50-game college season of a shorter, less so in 162-game professional atmosphere. And the players, like, again, that's the other thing. Ramos, quote, he said, it's the start of the season. We just have to get going. And Ray said, you got 160 games left. What are you going to do with it? It just like, it feels a little bit more of, I'm not saying he's out of his element, but there is an adjustment period and you don't want to lose the clubhouse. You don't want to lose these guys so early. And the best thing about it, I mean, they have an opportunity tonight. They're playing as we speak against the San Diego Padres. You get a win, and this sort of goes away. Winning is the best deodorant, as we like to say here on Tablesetters. You do that, and you find a way to do it. They're already up 3-0 in the top of the 5th. So if you start to win, all of a sudden those things go away, and he becomes a little bit like the Joe Madden, where like Joe Madden would say weird things, but he was able to win with the Cubs, and it started to become a little bit infectious. And obviously he won with the with the Rays at the time. Like those are things that eventually make these things go away, but you're not helping yourself when you're not scoring runs. And then you feel like, is this guy the right fit? It feels like Buster Posey is tied at the hip with this guy. He's not going anywhere. For the people like, oh, he's going to get fired in the first couple weeks. It's not happening. Buster Posey, this guy was well vetted. They want this guy to be successful. They're going to give him every opportunity to do so, especially with the Giants tying their horse to a guy that they feel like can build the culture. That's what he did in Tennessee. It took time though.
Right. I mean, yeah, he was hired because he's different. Like they wanted something different. So this is probably not the type of different they were hoping for, but you're right. Like we get on here weekly and we're going to talk about what we saw that prior week. But a lot of this early on is definitely, we know this as we say some of these things is overreaction. It's just surprising that we've gotten this much out of him. That's a little head scratching this early. And he's surrounded by like, they did a good job of surrounding him with other coaches that have had a lot of experience, right? Like, I mean, even not just in the front office, like we know there's people there as well, but like Jace Tingler is the bench coach, guy who's had major league manager experience. Obviously, Ron Washington is there, who's had manager experience, also great, like infield coach, bench coach, like he's done it all in the big. So that makes it even more surprising that this is happening. Like you have those guys to kind of, that can put their arms around him and help him with this kind of stuff. And hopefully they're doing that as we speak. But you're right. Like if they go on a little bit of streak, this is the news cycle moves so fast. It'll be gone before you know it.
So before we move on for this week, want to just discuss the NBC Netflix comparison we saw. Of course, opening night was on Netflix, their debut with baseball. And again, looking at the 2 opening week broadcasts, it's hard not to compare them on Wednesday night. I was very dissuaded by Netflix and what they did with baseball. And it was maybe a lot of traditional baseball fans feel the same way. It felt like a product launch to me. It felt like they were trying to integrate so much stuff, whether it was Bert Kreischer or it was like the hand and all the buses and stuff. It felt designed. And this is what I hate about a lot of the things tied to baseball. It's almost like WWE does this with wrestling. They're everything but. And it felt like the show and this broadcast was designed for people that don't watch baseball. How can we convince the non-baseball fan to be there? Whether it's, like I mentioned, Bert Kreischer, the dancers on the taxi cabs. I thought the studio lineup was great on paper. Barry Bonds did an appearance there, made some headlines with the potentially being a Yankee in the early 90s. Albert Pujols, Anthony Rizzo. I think Bonds was the headliner that kind of saved all of it. And Jameis Winston was there with Jimmy, I think it was Jey Uso and also Jacob Fatu were sitting out there. But the actual baseball broadcast was fine. I thought Matt Vasgersian was a good play-by-play choice. CC Sabathia, Hunter Pence were solid, and when the focus stayed on the field, I thought that was great. But I think the core problem is like Netflix kept reminding you that you were watching Netflix. Like, I don't want to watch a broadcast where it's like fans tuned in to watch the Yankees and the Giants. Let's not forget that. It happened to be on Netflix. The distinction apparently escaped the people in charge of the broadcast. And I think, the numbers did tell their own story. The game peaked at 2.6 million viewers for a service with 300 million global subscribers and the Yankees involved. I think that's a modest return on a $50 million per year deal. They got to do better than that. So the day after broadcast, I think Netflix did raise their prices again. I'm not sure if that's tied to this, but I just want to be able to keep that in mind. But your thoughts on the Netflix stuff? Are you echoing what I'm saying, or is there something similar that you have to add to it?
No, I pretty much echo what you have to say. Didn't love all the bells and whistles. And I feel like I'm relatively open-minded. Like, I can be old man yells at cloud sometimes, but like in the baseball sense, with as much as it's changed, like I do want the game to grow. So if I see something that's like helping grow the game, I'm gonna, even if it's not my thing, I'll give them their flowers and be like, I can see what they're doing. But yeah, I agree with you. It's like the everything but thing that you said, it makes a lot of sense. Like, can we focus a little more on the baseball? And I will say, Matty V is great up there. He's an entertaining play-by-play. I thought CC was great. So there were positives. I mean, it looked beautiful as far as the picture and how they presented Oracle and all that stuff. But just the bells and whistles weren't my cup of tea. And the score bug was also terrible. One of the worst ones I've seen.
Well, they pulled it off. I know John Boy posted a tweet about this where a video was like, put the score bug back on the screen. We need to know what's going on.
Oh, yes.
Which was like frustrating as hell.
Yeah, you can't be doing that. We need to know how many balls and strikes there are, like at a minimum.
Well, if you don't care about baseball, it's just like, whatever. Like, it's just a game for them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of indicative of what they believe. But on the NBC side of things, I thought they took a radical approach. They showed baseball. They approached it like this is a baseball game. That is the main headliner. Thursday's doubleheader started on time. It covered the games appropriately. It let the sport lead the product, and the graphics were sharp. The scoreboard was clean. I thought the broadcast catered to people who showed up to watch the Pirates and the Mets, and also the Diamondbacks and Dodgers. And then last night we saw Cleveland and Seattle have a game as well. And I thought this was awesome. Jason Benetti, who was poached from Fox to be the voice of Sunday Night Baseball, was a standout here. His play-by-play is absolutely crisp. He was keeping the telecast feeling light. I thought he's the right choice for the flagship package. So excellent job by NBC picking him. The one legitimate criticism that I'm hearing a lot of people, I'm curious your thoughts on this, where they're using a rotating analyst format rather than a fixed color commentator. So NBC, of course, is pairing Benetti with different analysts each week. So for Sunday Night Baseball's debut, it was the Guardians broadcaster Rick Manning, and then they used the Mariners analyst Ryan Rowland-Smith, who was there last night. What's your feeling on this? Because we've always wanted this in the postseason, to give each game a local texture, team-specific knowledge. Is this something we're looking for to do more in the future?
So I will say this. I love the idea, because people have been complaining for a while now of when, you get you listen to a team for 162 games. Unless the people that are announcing your games were terrible, you're going to get attached to your broadcasting crew. And I think NBC, what they've done really well is they're seeing this as an opportunity and listening to the complaints of past broadcasts. I mean, ESPN has been getting killed by hardcore baseball fans for years now with their Sunday Night Baseball presentation of the last few years. I mean, once upon a time, Sunday Night Baseball was a fan favorite. We're going back to the John Miller, Joe Morgan days, I think. But like recently, I think they lost us. And I feel like with what NBC is doing, like they're hearing this and trying to address people's complaints and people's desires. So I like that. Now, the question is, will it sound good with the rotation? I mean, Benetti seems to be able to do anything. Let's be like, I have full confidence in him. But I do love the idea of bringing the local people in, because that's what people have kind of asked for. I mean, even on Apple, like Apple's gotten criticized for a lot of things, but one of the best features of the Apple broadcast for a baseball game is that you can go to the settings and make it so you listen to your radio broadcasters. That's awesome. Like, I actually like that every once in a while. I'm used to watch, as a Met fan, I'll listen to Gary, Keith, and Ron. And if I'm driving in the car, I'll listen to Howie and our guy, Keith Rad. And so to be able to like mix the two and watch the game on TV, but turn Howie Rose and Keith Rad on the audio is really cool. Like, so criticize Apple how we will in different ways, but I thought that feature was a home run. And I think NBC is trying to kind of take that and do something even more extreme with it. So I'll give them credit for that, but I'm not just going to blindly say it's amazing until I actually like watch a few different games and see if like I notice anything about the rotating. Like if these guys don't fit well with each other because they're not used to each other, then that might ruin the broadcast a little bit. But overall, I like what NBC is doing. My only thing I didn't like, and this might just be me, with the Adam Ottavino stuff, I'm fine with like going to him. It's almost like going to the retired referees in a football game, or the umpires now they have as well, to ask them about a review that's going on. Like they're bringing Ottavino in when they're specifically talking about pitching stuff. I don't feel like they need to bring his picture up. Did you notice that? They're bringing his picture.
Yeah.
Like he's not sitting with those dudes. He's off somewhere else. And they're bringing his picture up every time they ask him something, and it takes up a part of the screen. I think you can just put his name, like Adam Ottavino speaking, like former major league pitcher, and hear the audio. I think that's enough. And I think they're just doing that to kind of have a different presentation. But I feel like that's one thing they could probably let go.
Yeah, no, I definitely figured that out too, that they probably could show him for a second in like the down period in between pitches and then go back and just have his name at the bottom, like you mentioned before, just have his voice out there. You know, I think obviously Ahmed Fareed, and you got Clayton Kershaw, Joey Votto, Anthony Rizzo. These are names that we're going to want to see. I think the biggest thing is obviously we have the Peacock thing and behind a paywall. NBC, by my account, looking at the bulk of the season, they're going to be on fully national TV starting through late May through the end of the season. So that's where a lot of the eyes are going to be on this, and maybe they'll fine tune it even further. But my biggest thing is what else can we do but compare it to Sunday Night Football, where again, Sunday Night Football is what Monday Night Football used to be. It feels like the big game of the week. You hear the theme song, the Zach Brown thing, whether you're a fan of country music or not, it felt like there was a presentation behind it because it's a big deal. As you mentioned, ESPN had this package since 1990. Like this is a huge deal. They're with NBC for a new 3-year deal. ESPN dropped the ball. All the criticism that Manfred and baseball had with ESPN was well-founded. So this is a nice opportunity to bring it to a new audience, and it looked fresh. And that's what I really enjoyed about it. We'll see. The jury is still out to figure out if this is going to be a fruitful relationship that furthers baseball, but so far so good. I thought NBC knocked out of the park with these 2 games that they had on here.
Yeah, I definitely think they fall on the plus side for sure. And this is, you mentioned Joey Votto. I just wanted to say, like, a great personality. I think that's a great hire. But do you see the clock that he bought for the Reds, like to put outside their stadium?
I didn't see this. No,
you didn't see this. All right. So if anyone's listening, and Steve, you too, but like, if you have not seen this, this story came out, I guess probably earlier this week, of like as a gift to them for like, you know, appreciation for the city and the team and part of his career, or the bulk of his career. He bought this really cool, like red, old school looking clock, and they put it right, basically on like the walkway up to the stadium, and it fits freaking perfectly. Like he got this thing custom made by someone. I don't know. It's one of the cooler things I've seen in a while. I just thought it was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. I'll check it out. It's cool to see, and it makes me feel old too, that you got Kershaw and Votto and Rizzo doing the things as far as broadcast goes, but it's awesome to see them being integrated. And I was like a little hesitant about Ryan Rowland-Smith being on there with his, I believe it's an Australian accent, but as time went on, like you can tell, like there was an effect of, you don't have this unnatural trying to get to know the teams on a large scale. Like there was an intimacy that these guys were familiar with, and with Rick Manning and Rowland-Smith over there. And they even showed the Ryan Rowland-Smith commercial that he had. I believe it was on ESPN, because he was the first ever player with the hyphenated name on an MLB jersey, which that's a nice bar trivia game. They showed the commercial where they were trying to call him the hyphen, and he was like dismissing it. And Ottavino too was talking about his pitch lab that he built in his own house. It was a lot of cool, lighthearted things on this broadcast that felt like you were sitting with some guys. And again, last night for the game with Cleveland and Seattle, it was a 7-0 blowout. So like, they didn't have a lot of like meaningful baseball to really discuss. Wait till they actually have a close game to really get going.
That's true. That's true. That shows skill. If you can make a bad game or an uninteresting game interesting, that's a sign of a good broadcast. So yeah, just bring it up for anyone who's watching on YouTube. This is the clock. It says at the clock's base is a bronze that simply reads "Thank you, Cincinnati" with Joey Votto's signature. It just looks so damn good. And I know you've been to that ballpark before, so you might be able to picture exactly where it is, but really well done. I mean, Joey Votto's the man. He just seems, everything he does seems to be the right thing. But I just want to mention a couple other footnotes here. Like we had the Vitello conversation. I feel like I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you. Like 3 games, and obviously tonight the fourth for the Yankees. You got to be feeling pretty good about what you're watching so far.
Definitely. I'm feeling really good about the pitching, of course, only giving up 1 run. They gave up another run tonight, but the bullpen looked good. Bednar looked sharp. I love what I saw from Schlittler. Love what I'm seeing from the offense. They feel dynamic where they're doing the right things defensively and all across the board. The team is there. You can't ask for a better start. There's no doubt about it. It's all good in Yankee land right now. There will be the bottom out for a couple, even if they lose tonight. I feel like there will be the injury stuff that comes out of the way, and I'm not wishing upon anyone. It's just the nature of the season, but you want to start the season 3-0 and feel good about yourself, only give up 1 run and blow out the Giants in most of these games and just make these games laughers. You can't ask for more. So I'm feeling really good. Judge getting going made me feel good. That first game, him striking out with the golden sombrero did not make me feel good, but him getting off the snide so early in there, a lot of size of reliefs happening in Yankee land. But you're right. I mean, you got to feel good about the Mets too. I understand that they took 2 or 3 from the Pirates, and the Skeens thing. How do we not even just discuss that for a second? Chasing him in a third of an inning. That was awesome.
Oh yeah, that was fantastic. I was at work trying to get as much as I could in there, and I was able to watch some of the first inning and him getting kind of hit around. And obviously, O'Neal Cruz looking like he doesn't belong out there. But yeah, no, I like what I see from the Mets too. I think the offense is still kind of getting going. They teased us a little bit in that first game where they put up 11 runs against, in a game that Skeen started. And since then, the offense has been a little more moderate. I think they're going to click though. I mean, Bo still hasn't gotten going. Maybe he just got going tonight. Some of the other dudes too. I feel like it has a lot of potential. I do like the rotation, how deep it is. So, I mean, Nolan McLean looked, even though he just went 5 innings, looked great the other night. With the movement, I don't think they got a hard hit ball off of him. So at the top of the rotation, Freddie will be better than he was in opening day as well. I like what I see. Just a lot more to come. And the Phillies, I told you, man, that I just had bad vibes with the Phillies. Those bad vibes to me are continuing a little bit. Like early on here, Bryce Harper got booed yesterday by Philly. Like I don't know. There's something off right now in Philadelphia, and it could, like I said, I did say that they're a team that I feel like needs to get off to a fast start, and it could change the field completely, but like not the start Philadelphia fans want so far. And I will say the team the Yankees are playing right now, the Seattle Mariners, they've looked pretty much fine, but Cal Raleigh, notably not in the lineup tonight after starting the season 2 for 15 with 10 strikeouts. And that's on top of a bad WBC. So I don't know what's going on there with Raleigh, but I mean, to not play in the 4th, 5th game of the season for Seattle, 5th game of the season. I was pretty surprised there because even though he's a catcher, we know you look at last year, they kept him in the lineup nearly every day by using the DH spot when he needed a break from catching. So
yeah, and the other subplot of this game too, obviously watching it on mute as we're recording, the Yankees have overturned 5 calls thus far this game, and we're only in the bottom of the 5th. God. We're in at that point, they were in the 4th inning, and they were all low pitches. Mike Estabrook is getting embarrassed and also getting yelled at by the Yankees to make an adjustment. So that's the nature of this, where you have this ebb and flow, and it's only 1-0. The Yankees obviously can come back. Kind of a sparse crowd in Seattle. I understand it's a Monday night. It's a little chilly and everywhere in all these cities, but this is a team that were very close to win the World Series. They had electric crowds all weekend, but then it looks pretty sparse there right now. Maybe people are taking some cover in the concessions or whatever, but they keep showing T-Mobile. It's a little bit light as far as the crowd goes.
You would think with the Yankees in town, it'd be a sellout for sure. But like you said, you make a good point. Crowds are hard to read just by pictures nowadays with all the concessions and extra stuff that you can do in the ballpark and how fast the game moves too. Like you go to just get a beer or something like that, you might miss a half inning or two if there's a long line. But the crowd will be showing up for them, if not tonight, eventually. Maybe is it a little chilly there?
Yeah, definitely. It's cold. I mean, it's cold everywhere. I was taking out the garbage earlier. I'm just like thinking, can we get warm weather? I know we got glimpses of, you mentioned opening day at Citi Field being very, very warm, but it's like, can we get some of this warm weather here? Like, when is it going to break the other way? I'm so frustrated with this never ending winter. Goddamn groundhog.
Look, dude, we got 70 degrees in the city today. And then I came home and it was not nearly as warm.
It just has this bite to it, dude.
Here.
We can't get rid of the winter bite. It's just out there. I'm waiting for like the day you go out there. I want to be able to go out in my backyard, put a projector on the screen, and watch some
Oh,
baseball.
hell yeah. Hell
that's
yeah.
what I want. That's what I want. I want to do that. It's going to be here sooner than you know it. But again, we appreciate you guys supporting our show. We'll be back talking baseball, of course. The rhythm of the show will have to get into order about how we're going to be covering this season. We're going to be looking to get some more guests on here, of course. So make sure you guys stay tuned to our socials for any information about the show at Tablesetters Pod. And if you can, be so kind, get the season off to a hot start. Leave a 5-star review on Spotify or Apple. It goes a very long way. Jump into our DMs on Twitter or on Instagram. Let us know what you think of the show and join the conversation. We have a lot of people that like to interact with us. Devin running the X Machine. He's posting polls and posted that great DeLauder clip with the Eric Cross conversation, quote tweeted him. Great video that got a lot of reactions and just stuff like that. You guys can enjoy the conversation. And baseball, as Devin mentioned so accurately before, the news cycle moves so fast. So jump on the train right now and get moving.
No doubt. Yeah, that DeLauder thing, I made that video in spring training when people were talking about his swing, but I had to pin it and bring it back with how crazy he's been going. And also people were asking for a nickname for Chase DeLauder. Like, what should the nickname be? My suggestion was the Anomaly, Chase DeLauder. Do you remember which wrestler? I mean, you're going to know this. Who was the wrestler with the nickname the Anomaly? He's had a few nicknames since then that have changed, but
the Anomaly, we're talking about WWE. I don't think I know this.
Oh yeah. Brock Lesnar was at one point the Anomaly. Brock Lesnar. That's where the first thing. It's just like someone who's, completely different.
This is OVW days. You're talking about like when he used to do the shooting star out there?
I think he was WWE at that point. I don't know when in his career, because he's been the Anomaly. He's been obviously the Beast, the Beast Incarnate.
Yeah.
There's a couple others out there. He's had a lot of nicknames over the years, but yeah, at one point he was the Anomaly. I thought that was a good one. Got a little bit of traction, but my nicknames, my ideas never stick with anybody. I tried to get the Seam team going for USA pitching staff.
Seam team was good, dude. I feel like the Seam team was a good one.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Oba versus Brock Lesnar at Mania? You think that Oba's getting the win there? You think he has to wait a little bit to get that way?
I feel like he's got to get it, man. This is what they've done wrong for so long. Where like a guy's on fire, just let's go with it. Don't stop it.
They can't help themselves, dude.
They've stopped short for so many dudes, but like this is the way he's selling his ass off for Oba. I feel like Lesnar's probably like, no, like put him over. Like I'm not doing this for no reason.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Oba feels like you want to talk about young stars, you got to be able to push them. Talking to the WWE centric side of things, him, Trick Williams, Javon Evans, those guys.
Trick is so entertaining. So entertaining.
Really, really good spot as far as WWE goes. But again, we appreciate you guys joining the conversation. We'll let you know when we're back soon talking all things baseball. Hope you guys enjoy the next week. Hopefully your fantasy teams are doing well. Devin and I started our season. It was almost a catastrophe. Shout out to the Yahoo customer service team.
Oh my God.
That figured out. I mean, we could spend all day talking about that, but just to kind of put it out there, when we drafted our teams, we had the issue where we drafted, and there's the NA issue where you have these players that are not assigned IL slots. They're not assigned NA slots because Yahoo waits until the teams make it official, right? So they want to make sure that the teams, they're not going to mark someone minor league unless they're sent down to AAA. So it's probably the right thing to do. So we expanded our rosters to 4 more bench spots, to like open it up so I could put all the players on there. And I'm like, you know what? We'll decrease it as the season starts. As we go to do it right before the season starts, Yahoo lets me know you can't decrease roster spots. And easily, I probably could have just contacted the customer service dude, Fred, who helped me out in the first place, and probably could have decreased the roster spots for me on the moment. But the recommendation was to reset the draft. And it's like, no problem. We'll keep the draft exactly where it was. The problem is it acted like we drafted on the first day of the season, which means you cannot start your year until would have been today. So luckily, somehow I got this live person, or someone saying it's AI, but I got a real person to actually go into our league with our league ID and be able to reset what we did a couple of times and get us to have our schedule as is. It was a remarkable turnaround. It was almost a catastrophe. I was sitting here at my computer, like in our group chat, like I don't even know what to do right now. And yeah, and we were almost switched to fan tracks in the moment. I think that's what got them. They were like, no, you can't leave Yahoo. Shout out to Yahoo. I don't think I'll ever leave now unless Sleeper becomes a thing.
Yeah, see, like this is what I'm talking about with AI. If that was AI, there's no way that shit would have gotten fixed. So shout out to Fred, right? See, Dana White, you listening here? Like AI's here. You don't always have to go with AI just because it's here. Like some real humans are nice every once in a while. So shout out to Fred. Maybe we'll have him on the show and will tell us a story.
I wish I can get him back, dude, but shout out to Fred from Yahoo. You did a great job. We'll be back soon talking all things baseball. Until that time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball.